Today on Time About the Movies, the 2010 summer movie season gets underway as Tony Stark once again dons the suit of Iron Man for this long-awaited sequel, Iron Man 2, just like he did 2 years ago with the first film. Will this be as good as the first film, better than the first film, or lackluster compared to the first film? Well, there's only one way to find out. We'll take a look at that. But then we also have the nemesis that Tony Stark could not possibly have expected to face this weekend. Who's strong enough to take on Tony and his Iron Man and all the characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Babies. Innocent little babies who have honestly no idea that they're being filmed for a motion picture. We have a documentary called Babies, and strap yourself in. The summer 2010 movie season is off and running, and we begin it next.
Our priority is to get the Iron Man weapon turned over to the United States of America.
I am Iron Man. The suit and I are one. They will deploy on the border. I hope you're ready.
Go get him, boss.
There! You complete me? I want one.
No.
I want a Scarlett Johansson for my own. I think all guys want a Scarlett Johansson for their own, honestly. But anyway, welcome to Time About the Movies. It is May 7th, 2010, and as I said before, we are now officially at the start of the summer movie season. And needless to say, the summer movie season of 2010 was certainly not as strong as past summers in general. Not to say that there weren't a lot of bad movies, but 2010 overall was not a great year for the movies in general. And most of the big blockbusters that were coming out were either disappointments and very few surprises. There are a couple that we'll get to eventually. We've already had a couple in the year itself, but the summer as a whole, not as strong as 2009 was. But of course, the biggest of the blockbusters came out very early on, and that is, of course, Iron Man 2, coming 2 years after the first movie opened up the Marvel Cinematic Universe and helped to reignite the career of Robert Downey Jr. This time, he's back in this one as well. But do we have a movie here that's as good as the original? Not exactly. But does that make it a bad movie? Only one way to find out. Let's go ahead and delve into this sucker. So 6 months has passed since Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. came out as Iron Man, and now Senator Stern, played by Gary Shandling. Excuse me. Played by somebody who makes me want to burp. Sorry about that. Senator Stern, played by Gary Shandling. Rest in peace, Gary Shandling. You were great as Larry Sanders, and you're great in this movie. Wants Tony to turn the Iron Man suit to the government, but a Russian named Ivan Vanko, played by Mickey Rourke, coming off of success with The Wrestler a couple years ago, has duplicated the technology and builds weapons of his own, which are later used by Justin Hammer, played by Sam Rockwell, creating new challenges for Stark. And it's up to him and his buddy Rhodes, now played by Don Cheadle, to save the day. And you also get Black Widow showing up in this movie, too. And we should kind of run down the behind-the-scenes stories of this movie, because there are certainly a lot of interesting aspects to talk about here. So one of the big things early on, as soon as the first Iron Man came and went at the box office, there was a lot of concerns that Jon Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. were going to get screwed over by Marvel because of, financial issues, that they won't want to come back for this. I mean, they were still dealing with the fact that Edward Norton was causing problems behind the scenes with the Incredible Hulk, and that's why he didn't show up for the rest of the movies that the Hulk was in, and they replaced him with Mark Ruffalo. And of course, they were also dealing the same thing with Terrence Howard, who he's the one that didn't come back for that one, and Don Cheadle eventually replaced him. But then they eventually came to an agreement for Robert Downey Jr. and also Jon Favreau to come back as well. And then they were also talking to Emily Blunt to possibly play the Black Widow, but she turned it down because she had a previous commitment to star in another movie later in the year, and let's just say it's not the best choice overall. I mean, Gulliver's Travels is not something you want to say that you took that instead of taking a prime juicy role in Iron Man 2, but not only that, there was also something going on where there was a point where they were really considering not doing this cinematic universe that they had planned, because I think if I remember correctly, there was a thing where they had trouble figuring out, they had trouble figuring out like what about the financial issues for making the Avengers. Like, how are we going to get to the Avengers at this point? And there was a lot of concern that this was going to lead to them not making the Avengers movie. But then one pivotal moment in the summer of 2009 completely changed that, and I think you all know what I'm talking about. September 2009, the Walt Disney Company acquires Marvel Entertainment for $4 billion. And the rest is history. Not only did they have the financial backing to make the MCU the way they wanted to, it eventually paid off in dividends. I mean, of course, not only did Iron Man continue its success overall, but the Avengers went on to become a multi-billion-dollar franchise. And of course, the MCU is the most profitable franchise in Disney in box office history. So yeah, overall, that was probably the best overall decision that could have possibly have come from this. Was for Disney to pick them up and essentially make Marvel their equivalent to DC at Warner Brothers. And sure enough, Iron Man 2 came out. They went ahead and did eventually put together their MCU as it is, and the rest is history. I mean, this is a movie that was highly anticipated overall, and yeah, it has everything you want to see in an Iron Man movie, but at the same time, it kind of also does what Spider-Man 3 did and go completely overboard with its character development and its complicated storylines. Most of what's done in here is good, and very rarely does it go overboard, but there's one scene in particular that I feel like really just pushes it way too far, and that's the DJ AM scene where like Tony Stark goes completely nuts at this party, and it's so poorly put together. It's almost on the level of the club dancing scene from Spider-Man 3, and it feels like what they were trying to do with that was trying to bring in the Demon in the Bottle storyline here, which they do kind of, but not really. I think even the big thing going forward was the fact that, this is not a Demon in a Bottle story, but it really is kind of a Demon in a Bottle story. But then again, they were thinking, as that was said before, they brought in the writers for this, which they brought in Justin Theroux to write the script for this, and he had just written Tropic Thunder. He also was somebody who had worked with David Lynch all the time, and this was his first big thing after Tropic Thunder, and needless to say, him being the screenwriter for this, I don't think was the smartest thing to do in general, but like I said, there's just way too much going on in the movie in general. I do like the fact that there is a story development of Tony Stark throughout this. You see him at his low point and ending up sitting in the donut of Randy's Donuts, which is a very good shot in general, with Nick Fury putting him basically in house arrest, but once again, the characters overall are well done, they're well written, and the performances do carry the load. Robert Downey Jr. is always going to be terrific as Iron Man. Don Cheadle did a pretty good job of making Rose his own by a long shot. I mean, almost right out of the gate, he was just all in on that. Mickey Rourke makes a good Whiplash for the little bit that you see him in here. He's not really as big of a threat as they would make him out to be. Sam Rockwell's pretty good here as Justin Hammer. Scarlett Johansson's pretty good as Romanoff, and she, of course, will have better character development as the films go on. Samuel L. Jackson and Clark Gregg are good as well as Nick Fury and Agent Coulson. Gary Shandling, as I said before, a great actor, great in here. Jon Favreau is pretty good here as Happy. The special effects in here are pretty good. The overall sequences of special effects in this are very well done. And I did like the tease at the end of, setting up Thor, because we knew that was coming the next summer. But there is a lot of problems with the film in general. Gwyneth Paltrow in here, I thought she is, I didn't like her that much in the movie. I thought she was too bitchy for her own good, and she did kind of look like she was a little bit anorexic. I don't know what happened, but it looked like she lost a lot of weight compared to where she was in the last movie. I don't know if it was just because of she was going on some exercise or something like that, but you could definitely notice a difference between this movie and the first movie, that the difference in weight in general, But also Leslie Bibb coming back as Christine Everhart from the first movie, it just really felt kind of pointless to have her in there. Just like, hey, we got her back in here. Does she add anything to the story? Not really. So why the hell are we even doing anything with her? And as much as I like Mickey Rourke in this movie, like I said, I thought he was very underused in this. I mean, the Grand Prix is great, but the final climax should be the best thing about the movie, but it's supposed to be the big battle between these two, where the action and the intensity ramps up. You're a sequel. You're doing something that's better than it's supposed to be bigger and better than the original film. This thing's over in 2 minutes. Literally, the whole climax is finished within 2 minutes. And it's just like, come on, this is Iron Man going up against one of his biggest enemies, and the final battle is just 2 minutes in length. It's just like, seriously? This is something that you don't do in a movie like this unless you're really going to go in and do something unique and different with it. Like Spider-Man 2, for example. it didn't go bigger with the special effects, but the emotions and the acting in that overall made that better than the ending in the first movie, and that made that movie in general a great film overall. To me, the biggest overall problem with Iron Man 2 stems from simply two things. One, the newer additions, as much as I appreciate them in there, they make this feel nothing more like an extended commercial for the Avengers and an Iron Man sequel. This was back when this was still a relatively new thing that they were just trying out, and they really weren't set. They really didn't have a clear idea of how to set everything up as they did later on down in the decade. But in this case, yeah, it just didn't work in general. Also, Favreau and Downey Jr. basically said early on that they can't have an Iron Man movie ready to go within 2 years, and it shows. Because you're doing, as soon as you make the movie becomes a hit, the studio, of course, wants you to make a sequel right away. But you have to be able to have a better story to advance as long, especially since you're setting up the Avengers in general here. And it's not that they didn't fit it in the right timeline to have another sequel, like within 2 to 3 years is the right way to go, but you have to make sure that it's a good script, you put the effort into it, and with this it feels like they tried to put some effort in there, but felt like the studio was just pushing them to go like, okay, you gotta hurry this along, because we gotta have this out by May of 2010. It's basically, quantity over quality is what you really look at it here, and here's my thing. I still like the movie, I still think it's a good time overall, but it is not the first Iron Man movie. It's nowhere near as good as that one. It doesn't hold up as much as that film does, but this still has some good entertainment value to it. Just not as much as the first film did. It's definitely a movie that could have been so much better if there had been a conceited effort to make something as good as the original, but as it stands, it's fine for what it is. It's still the second best in the series, which I think the series overall did start to trunk down a little bit as the series went on. Like Iron Man 3, which should have been one of the better ones, especially with Shane Black involved. It was the first one. It was the first movie after the Avengers, and that was as much of a disappointment as Iron Man 2 was. Iron Man 3 was a massive disappointment, considering everybody on board with that one. That still to me is the worst of the series, but even then, it's still not bad, but it should have been so much more than it actually was. But we'll eventually get into that one in 2013. But Iron Man 2, good, but definitely a step down compared to the first movie. It's definitely an inferior sequel. So with that said, let's go ahead and get on to Tony Stark's newest enemy this weekend. 2 years ago, his biggest enemy was Patrick Dempsey in a lazy romantic comedy. Now he faces his greatest foe yet, babies.
From their first breath to their first steps. Meet 4 extraordinary babies. USA Today raves, if you were enraptured by March of the Penguins, wait until you see babies. Babies. Rated PG starts everywhere Friday.
Those little bastards. Okay, I'm completely going overboard on this. But this is Babies. This is a documentary that Focus Features basically put out, hoping that they would have the next March of the Penguins. You even see it in the trailer there. One of the reviews is just like, if you love March of the Penguins, you'll love this. And I won't go that far. It's not a bad documentary either way, but the documentary opens showing one of the four babies in here, Panajo from Obuwu, I'm gonna get these all wrong. Namibia. Like I said, I'm going to get all these wrong. I'm sorry if you get offended by this, but I'm just reading it off of here. But Panijao comes into the world in a modest hut as her mother rubs red O'Share all over her pregnancy-swollen belly. Hattie from San Francisco is shown in a Western NICU surrounded by medical equipment and technicians. Another scene sees Bayar from Bayan Chamani, Mongolia. Again, sorry about getting these all wrong, but being born and tightly swaddled in a hospital before heading off with his parents and a sibling on a motorcycle to the rural area where the family lives. Other highlights include Mari from Tokyo, Japan. I can get that one. Mari's tantrum for when she is frustrated with a toy. Hattie getting bored during an organized play session. Bayar taking a bath while a goat comes to drink from the same water. And Panajo fighting with a sibling when they are playing on the ground. The documentary shows the contrast of the 4 cultures without using any form of narration, leaving it to the viewers to interpret the film. And for that, you gotta give a credit for that, but unlike something like March of the Penguins, I just find March of the Penguins more enjoyable than Babies. Like, I've said it before, I'm not much of a baby person. Like, I work in a grocery store, and I hear all these babies screaming all the time, and, like, in restaurants, too. It's just like, I honestly don't ever want to have kids, honestly. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to be in a hurry to the point where I want to have kids. I want to be a part of a birth of some offspring here, but it's just like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't feel that way. And I've seen it because I've seen people in all these different places where it feels like they had babies just because they didn't know what a condom was, or just because they wanted to use it more as an accessory. Not to say that everybody I know that has a baby does that. I just most of the people that I've seen when I'm working or out of there, more times than not, it's mostly because I mostly feel like that they had them because they didn't know what a condom was and didn't put them on, or they're just having it because they want people to be like, oh my God, you have a baby, and they're completely not prepared to do that. But once again, I'm not saying that everybody is like that. I'm just making my own theories about that. I know some people aren't going to agree with me on that, and that's totally fine. But I don't hate this movie. I just feel like there's not really much there to it per se. I mean, I think it's an interesting idea overall, but it really does feel like you need to have a child to really experience this and have a much better impact than somebody like me would. Me personally, it just didn't do it for me. It's not a bad documentary per se, but I feel like if you have kids, if you have a family like this, it's definitely something that's much more to your liking. Me personally, I just didn't really care for it too much. Not a bad documentary, but not a great one either. So that's Babies for you. Would you believe that the hardest review to get through this time around was for Babies? I mean, I thought I was going to have a tough time with Iron Man 2, but yeah, Babies was hard to talk about mostly because how do you talk about a movie where you don't really care about the subject matter because you don't like babies in general? Like, again, I want to make it specifically clear, not everybody is somebody that I think should not have babies in general. It's just not my thing. I've never wanted to have kids, honestly, and maybe that'll change when I'm much older and it's too late, but I'm sorry, I'm 36 years old. I still don't feel like I want to be a father in the future. I just don't feel like I want to go down that route. But anyway, with all that said, that's going to wrap this episode of Time About the Movies up here. And the summer movie season, like I said, is off and running. Next time around, Ridley Scott reunites with Russell Crowe for the latest film, Robin Hood. And needless to say, it does not go very well. But we have two great movies that do come out to compete with that, and were actually much better movies. Amanda Seyfried starring in the romantic drama Letters to Juliet, and we also have Queen Latifah and Common starring in the comedy Just Right, which, believe it or not, is not only a good romantic comedy, but a good PG-rated romantic comedy. Like, hell is freezing over right now because I did not think that was even possible in this day and age, but it is there, and we're going to definitely talk about it on the next episode, so definitely be on the lookout for that tomorrow. But with all that said, though, if you somehow still enjoy this and aren't ready to put your hate comments down there for what I said about babies in general, go ahead and hit that like button, the subscribe button, and the notification button, and also check out the playlist as well as our previous episode that we did yesterday. But with all of that said, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. So until then, take care.